The scissors snapped shut before anyone could stop her trembling. Cruel hand. Maya screamed as locks of her daughter's hair fell onto the pavement. Diane Whitfield stood over the child, smiling with terrifying, righteous satisfaction. This is what happens when you ignore community grooming standards. She snapped. Maya's hands shook as she gathered her daughter's hair from the concrete. 8-year-old Zoe sobbed quietly, clutching her mother's arm in fear. Neighbors emerged from their homes, drawn by the commotion near the mailboxes. Diane held her clipboard high, citing violation number 12.4 again. Children's hair must remain within approved community appearance guidelines, she insisted firmly. Maya could not believe the woman had actually touched her daughter's hair. This is assault. Her voice cracking with disbelief and rage. Diane rolled her eyes, dismissing the accusation as dramatic immigrant overreaction nonsense. You people moved here and refused to follow our established community rules, she sneered. Maya had moved her family here seeking safety after years of hardship. Her husband David, a decorated veteran, watched the scene from their porch. He rushed forward the sidewalk with urgency. What did you do to my daughter? He demanded. Diane straightened her blouse, unbothered by the growing crowd of witnesses. Someone needed to enforce the rules around here, she stated coldly. David knelt beside Zoe, gently examining the jagged, uneven cuts in her hair. This is criminal. Pulling out his phone to call police. Diane scoffed. President made her untouchable here. I have authority over community standards, she declared. Neighbors began recording, their phones capturing every cruel word she spoke. Mrs. Forward, shaking with anger and disgust. She cut a child's hair without permission. This is completely unacceptable, she shouted. Diane glared at the gathering crowd, sensing the tide turning against her. You're all overreacting. It was just a few uneven strands, she insisted. Zoe buried her face in her mother's shoulder, still trembling from fear. Maya stroked her daughter's damaged hair, fighting back tears of fury. We are calling the police, and you will face consequences, David said firmly. Diane's smile finally faltered as reality began creeping into her expression. She had crossed a line that no rulebook could ever justify or protect. Sirens echoed faintly in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Diane's confidence cracked slightly, though her arrogance refused to fully disappear yet. This is not how things work, she muttered. Maya stood tall, refusing to let this woman walk away unpunished today. You don't get to hurt my child and just walk away, she said. The crowd murmured in agreement, finally seeing Diane's true, ugly nature exposed. For years, her discriminatory and humiliating HOA enforcement. Now, someone had filmed undeniable proof of her abusive behavior. Maya clutched Zoe tightly, whispering reassurances while waiting for police to arrive. This was only the beginning of Diane Whitfield's long overdue reckoning today. The patrol car pulled into the cul-de-sac. Lights flashing against the trees. Officer Reyes stepped out. Scanning the tense crowd gathered near the mailboxes. David explained everything calmly, though anger simmered beneath his controlled voice. She cut my daughter's hair without consent. Right here in public, he said. Diane attempted to interject, insisting she was merely enforcing community appearance standards. Officer Reyes asked to see the child, his expression hardening with concern. Zoe peeked out from behind her mother, eyes red and swollen from crying. The officer knelt down gently, speaking softly to reassure the frightened little girl. Can you tell me what happened? Sweetheart. Zoe whispered that the lady grabbed her hair and cut it suddenly. Officer Reyes turned toward Diane, his demeanor shifting into stern, professional seriousness. Ma'am. Child's hair without parental permission? He asked. Diane hesitated, suddenly aware that her actions sounded worse spoken aloud clearly. I was simply addressing a long-standing violation of our grooming guidelines. She stammered. That is not how this works. The officer replied, shaking his head firmly. Neighbors continued recording, capturing Diane's nervous backpedaling for the entire internet. Mrs. offering her own footage from previous incidents. She has harassed minority families in this neighborhood for over 3 years, she said. Other residents nodded, finally finding courage to speak against their tyrannical HOA president. The Hendersons were forced to remove their wheelchair ramp last spring. Someone shouted. The Patels were fined repeatedly for cooking smells from their kitchen. Another added. Diane's controlled facade crumbled further as accusations poured from every direction now. This is a witch hunt, she protested, though her voice lacked previous conviction. Officer Reyes asked Maya if she wanted to press formal charges immediately. Yes. Without a single moment of hesitation or doubt. My daughter will not grow up thinking this kind of abuse is acceptable. The officer nodded. Charges of assault and battery. This cannot be happening to me, Diane cried, finally showing genuine fear. I am the HOA president. You cannot arrest someone in my position, she protested. Officer Reyes calmly explained that authority does not exempt anyone from consequences. Cutting a child's hair without consent constitutes battery under state law. Ma'am. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Diane was placed into the patrol car. David held Zoe close, whispering that everything would be okay from now. Maya felt a strange mixture of relief, exhaustion. That night, it rapidly across social media platforms. Thousands of comments poured in, condemning Diane's racist and abusive behavior publicly. Local news stations picked up the story within hours of the arrest. Maya found herself overwhelmed by messages of support from strangers worldwide. Other families came forward, sharing their own stories of Diane's discriminatory treatment. The HOA board scheduled an emergency meeting to address the growing scandal. Maya knew this fight was far from over, but justice felt closer. The HOA emergency meeting overflowed with residents demanding accountability and immediate change. Maya sat beside David, holding Zoe's hand throughout the entire tense gathering. Board members reviewed years of complaints previously dismissed or quietly buried before. Multiple families testified about Diane's pattern of racist and discriminatory enforcement practices. The Hendersons described losing their wheelchair ramp due to her relentless harassment. The Patels recalled excessive fines issued without proper notice or legitimate justification. One by one, of systemic abuse uncovered. The board voted unanimously to remove Diane Whitfield from her position permanently. Her decades-long reign of intimidation finally collapsed under overwhelming public pressure. Meanwhile, felony assault charges against Diane Whitfield. The video evidence, combined with witness testimonies, made the case undeniably strong. Diane's attorney attempted to argue diminished responsibility, citing her community service record. The judge remained unmoved, emphasizing the severity of assaulting a defenseless child. On the day of sentencing, the courtroom filled with neighbors seeking justice. Maya stood at the podium, her voice steady despite years of suppressed anger. She terrorized my family because we looked different and spoke another language, she said. She violated my daughter's body and dignity without remorse or hesitation. Maya continued. Diane sat motionless, finally stripped of the power she once wielded carelessly. The judge sentenced her to 18 months in prison for felony assault charges. Additional fines and mandatory anger management classes were ordered as further consequences. Diane's perfectly manicured world crumbled into humiliation. Isolation. Former friends and allies distanced themselves, embarrassed by her exposed cruel behavior. Her once pristine reputation became permanently associated with racism and child abuse. Meanwhile, each inch symbolizing quiet, resilient healing. Maya started a community support group helping families targeted by HOA discrimination. David became a vocal advocate, speaking publicly about veterans facing similar injustices. The neighborhood elected a new, fair-minded HOA board within mere weeks. New policies were implemented, protecting residents from arbitrary and discriminatory enforcement actions. Mrs. President, promising transparency and genuine community fairness. Diane Whitfield's name became synonymous with abuse of unchecked, petty bureaucratic power. Her downfall served as a powerful warning against discrimination disguised as authority. Maya often told Zoe that bravery means standing tall after being hurt. Justice did not erase the pain, but it restored their family's dignity. The community learned that silence only empowers those who abuse their authority. Neighbors who once stayed quiet now spoke up against any sign of injustice. Zoe grew into a confident young girl, unafraid to share her difficult story. She often said her hair grew back stronger, just like her family's spirit. Diane remained behind bars, reflecting on choices that destroyed everything she valued. Power without compassion. She finally realized, always leads toward inevitable, painful consequences. In the end, courage, cruelty and prejudice. This story remains a reminder that justice eventually finds those who abuse power.